Hello guys, and welcome to this video with me, Coach Reese. How are you all doing? Hope you're doing really well. So, in today's video, we're going to take a look at how to recognise a team's shape and structure when conducting a match analysis. As always, timestamps are in the description. If you do enjoy, remember to subscribe, and let's get started. So firstly, let's make sure we understand what shape and structure is. A team's shape and structure is how the team look both in and out of possession. A team's shape and structure will be different to the formation that they start with. Things that impact a team's shape and structure are the individual positions of players, the team's units, and the team's lines. Further to that, we can think about the distances between units, players, and lines. So we're going to start with out of possession. And the reason we're going to start with that is because out of possession tends to be much easier to recognise, and that's more so because defending tends to be more straightforward. Most teams do it a similar way, whereas in possession tends to be a little bit more fluid. There tends to be a lot more player movement involved. And for our video today, we're going to focus around the 4-3-3 formation. So our 4-3-3 has moved into a mid-block. And to help us recognise the structure of the mid-block, we need to identify the outer sections of the block. So this will give us the complete structure of the team's mid-block. Once we've identified that, we can then start to identify the three lines within that. So we'll have our deepest line, our middle line, and our attacking line. What we will find with team shape and structure is that players will move into different lines that doesn't necessarily associate with their traditional unit. So for example, in our mid-block here, because we have only one striker, to create this 4-4-2 structure, we need an attacking midfielder to move alongside the striker. And this can be the same for a team's deep block. We just identify the outer edges of the entire structure, and then we identify the three lines within that. So a 4-3-3 deep block can often look like a 4-5-1. Now let's flip it and think about in possession. As I mentioned earlier, in possession can be much harder to recognise just because it tends to be a little bit more fluid. Players are moving around a lot to disrupt opposition structures. And although there will be similar trends between teams, we might find that although two teams both play the 4-3-3, their in possession shape looks very different. So your biggest ally with in possession shape and structure and being able to recognise that when conducting a match analysis is team knowledge and formation knowledge. If you've got both of these, it will really help you identify how the team's shape and structure is looking when they're in possession. What shape are they trying to use to build play with? So we're going to stay with the 4-3-3, and with knowledge of teams who use the 4-3-3, we can expect teams who use this formation to try and dominate possession. So this is where the team want to have their real success. A team who like to dominate possession, who use the 4-3-3, will often try and create numerical advantages. So with the knowledge of the formation and knowledge of the team, we can identify key positions whose movements will help create numerical advantages, and further to that, their movement will help create the team's in possession shape. So with the 4-3-3, the first player that we can identify whose movement between lines will help a team create numerical advantage is the holding midfielder. And what we tend to see with the 4-3-3 is we tend to see this holding midfielder move to a position between the two centre-backs that allows the team to create this almost 3v2, to create this first initial numerical advantage. Building with a back three is a very common trend of teams who use the 4-3-3 formation. To help dominate possession, teams who use the 4-3-3 will often try and occupy all 5 vertical zones, especially as they advance towards the final third. And the key players involved in this will be fullbacks. The first option we have with fullbacks is they can just simply play as traditional fullbacks and stay wide. So the fullbacks will occupy the 2 wide zones. This is where we start to recognise the line. So as the fullbacks advance, we see the wingers invert. So the wingers will now occupy the half spaces with the fullbacks staying wide. The key here is to now recognise that the fullbacks have joined this attacking line. So this attacking line now will consist of 5 players. So what we've now identified is we've got our 3 at the back, which is our 2 centre backs and our holding midfielder. And because of the advanced positions of the fullbacks, they are now occupying this final line. So simply by process of elimination, we're able to identify the middle line of this structure because they're the 2 players left. Another option that we have to try and again build into this 3-2-5 shape is we might see a fullback invert. So this means that one of the fullbacks will come inside. This fullback will now make up the middle line of 2. This can happen as an opportunity for the team to allow an attacking midfielder to occupy one of the half spaces, with the other winger on that side maintaining the width that would have been maintained by the inverting fullback. So out of possession shape tends to be very easy to recognise, especially a mid and a deep block, because you will see that most teams' mid blocks, especially who are using a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, they will look very similar. So you'll find that most of the time their mid blocks will resemble a 4-4-2. Deep blocks might also be a 4-4-2, or it might be a 4-5-1. That tends to be a common trend across teams. The difficulty arises when we switch that to in possession because it can be a lot more fluid. And your biggest ally in this is team and formation knowledge. If you know what shape this formation tends to build into, you can try and observe those. You're almost a step ahead. So I mentioned this in our pre-game analysis. This will really, really help you. If you're new to it, just focus around out possession. Just start recognising those shapes because they tend to be a lot easier. And once you can identify the outer structure and the 3 lines within that, move on to in possession. So I hope you found the video useful. I've been Coach Reese, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.